So, Dodge finally killed the HEMI V8, and I haven't seen so many grown men cry since the hardware store stopped serving popcorn. But here we are looking at a 2026 Dodge Charger 6-pack. Now, Dodge surely knew they were entering a minefield, so to soften the blow a little bit, they dug into their 1970s history book and pulled out a legendary nameplate, though the execution is slightly different this time around. Back in the day, 6-pack meant 3 2-barrel carburetors bolted to a big old V8 that got 4 miles to the gallon. Today, it means a straight 6 with twin turbos. Not only did Dodge kill off the V8, but they also killed off the Challenger, kind of merging the two models into one. Now the Charger comes in either a 2-door or a 4-door. Now luckily when Dodge was looking at their history books, they also took a look at some of the designs of those older cars, because this is not your futuristic blob. This is a throwback to the golden era of the Dodge Challenger. The front end is a big old nod to that 1968 Charger, as is the sculpted hood bulge. The side profile is that vintage fastback look. This car is anything but subtle. Look at those Murica racing stripes going down the middle. And props to the marketing team for the color name Bludicrous. If Bludicrous and Peel Out Orange are a little too wild for your taste, there is a new color this year called Sub-Zero, which is sort of a blue-gray that looks beautiful. There are some other standard black, white, silver options as well, but get one in a color. You can also swap out the standard racing stripes for a satin black hood graphic that covers the power bulge. But even in its subtlest form, this is not the polite European sports sedan that you might be cross-shopping. This is a classic American muscular land yacht. Even at night, this car has presence with the shape of its LED headlights, the nice crisp DRL going across the front, and the glowing red emblem in the middle. That emblem, which is also present, well, everywhere else on this car, there's a million of them right here, is called a Fratzog, and that is another throwback to the wildest muscle cars that Dodge made in the 60s and 70s. It may be illuminating what's in front of you, but you could say Dodge is shining a light on their heritage. Heading around back, you're greeted with this ring of fire LED red taillight and another one of those Fratzog logos. Whoever you just gapped on the highway is getting a great view. I think this low deck lid spoiler might be the only subtle thing on this car. Because my tester is an RT+, it has another logo, another light in the form of a puddle light that will project onto the ground as you approach it at night, so that you know that you're taking a step in the right direction. In addition to my tester being a plus, it's also got the performance handling package on it, which swaps out the standard 18-inch wheels with 2-piston floating calipers here for 20-inch diamond cut wheels wrapped in sticky Eagle Sport performance all seasons with 6-piston Brembos on the front, clamped to a 380mm ventilated disc. These are 275/40s, and interestingly, it's actually a square setup. Before we spark the big fight in the comments about what's under the front, let's talk about what's under the back here. This doesn't really look like it, but it is actually a liftback, which means that there is tons of space. It's also automatic, which is quite nice. But this opens up into 37 cubic feet of space. You can get even more just by dropping down those back seats, since it does pass all the way through. Underneath the floor, not more space, but you do have a fix-a-flat kit, so there's that. Why does Stellantis always put the buttons on the inside? I just feel like I'm gonna smash my hand or something. All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room, or the lack of elephant underneath the hood. This is the 3-liter twin-turbo straight 6 that the marketing department has dubbed the Hurricane engine. It makes 420 horsepower and 468 pound-feet of torque. And I know all the 12-year-olds on Twitter will shout that there is no replacement for displacement. There's no replacement for cubic inches. But you can, in a respectful or not so respectful tone, inform those 12-year-olds that they need to check out the dyno sheet, because this actually makes 50 more horsepower than that outgoing 5.7-liter HEMI V8. But if 420 is still a little bit too pedestrian for you, then you can graduate to the high output version, which makes 550 horsepower. And yeah, sure, there is an all-electric version too called the Daytona, but we don't need to talk about the Charger with the Charger today. We're gonna focus on the one that burns premium dinosaur juice. And boy, does it burn that premium dinosaur juice. I'm getting like 200 miles to the tank. An 8-speed automatic is gonna be your only transmission option here in this one. Pour one out for the manual guys, myself included. I really enjoyed that Tremec gearbox in the Challenger that I drove a couple of years ago, but that is gone now. 8-speed auto only. All-wheel drive is also standard, interestingly, but don't worry, most trims come with a front axle disconnect, so feel free to go be a hooligan in a parking lot at the first sign of snow. Last thing before we head inside, let's give this thing a little listen. I think it sounds pretty good for a straight 6. It's no HEMI V8, but straight 6s don't usually sound all that good. And I think this one does. And luckily, got a nice, easy remote start right here on the key fob. Stepping inside, we've got some big tech upgrades here with a 16-inch digital cluster and a 12.3-inch touchscreen. Let's talk about this steering wheel here real quick first, though. It's got a flat bottom, which is great for ingress and egress. What's up with the flat top? Let's face it, it's a square. Let's keep the flat top for grooving up slowly with the Juju eyeballs. That was a Beatles joke for the aforementioned 12-year-old keyboard warriors. Okay, but beyond the weird shape and the fact that when you go to turn, you grab and miss occasionally, the layout of the steering wheel is very good. I really like the way they've laid out the buttons on the front. The drive modes are easily accessible. Got these nice paddle shifters, and in typical Stellantis fashion, you also have volume and tuning on the back of the wheel, which is super easy and convenient. The heated and ventilated suede sport seats are great. They're super comfortable and power adjustable in every way, including the bolsters, my favorite type of adjustment. And I do love the leather everywhere, as well as the attitude adjustment lighting. That's what they call their ambient lighting. You know, a little Charger logo over there. And this stuff in the door looks great. But in typical Dodge fashion, you got leather touching super hard plastics. Don't touch this stuff over here. You're going to be disappointed that you paid 65 grand for this thing. But hey, in terms of the leather, the visuals, the sound, when you put your foot into it, maybe 65 grand isn't so bad. Beyond the wheel, another sort of odd interior choice here is the button for getting out of the car. I think that's borrowed from Maserati. I've seen that in like a lot of the Maseratis, so if you're going back and forth between your Gran Turismo and your Charger, then maybe it's familiar. But it just seems like an odd choice in a muscle car like this. But just so you know, in case your battery dies and you don't want to become a permanent resident, or maybe there's a robot uprising, then get familiar with the mechanical latch, which is down below, closer to the footwell. And going up top, we've got HomeLink, an auto dimming mirror, a spot for your sunglasses, and a racing stripe I mentioned before. You can see it through the glass roof. Going down into the middle here, those screens that I mentioned before, super clean, super crystal clear. This is the latest Uconnect system. It works great. Android Auto, Apple CarPlay are standard. I do wish that the heated steering wheel, heated seats, ventilated seats buttons were physical controls and not these weird haptic touch things. Not haptic, touch things. But outside of that, this system works great, and I love all the customizability. There's a lot of sport gauges and stuff in there too if you want to mess around with that. And the cluster here is also super clean and crystal clear with a whole bunch of information you can cycle through. Ugh, not a fan of this. Why is this all one button? Here in the back seats, I've got tons of space. I even pushed that seat back a little bit. I'm only 5'7", but I've still got plenty of room. Got mat pockets. I've got ventilated seats apparently. Not sure what's going on there. Don't tell Dodge. These are even heated back here in this spec. Some USBs. We do have vents in the center. Love that. Fold down armrests, cup holders, the America stripe all the way back with this glass roof. Not too shabby. The child locks are broken. Alright, I'm gonna be here a while. Out on the asphalt, let the mind games begin, because despite being the size of the Titanic, this thing handles a corner pretty well. Actually, the way it drives in general is almost reminiscent of BMW, but with all the polite European edges roughed up with an axe. I mean, I guess a BMW is kind of like a European muscle car in a lot of ways. But the transmission here is aggressive, sometimes a little too aggressive. You only have an auto mode, there's no normal mode. I mean, there are other modes too. There's a sport, there's a custom, there's no normal, there's just an auto, which means that the transmission programming isn't always super consistent. It's trying to predict what you want rather than giving you what you expect sometimes. Now, most of the time it's great, especially in the spirited drives. It's just sometimes during those normal drives, I'd like it to tone things down just a little bit, a little less jerky, a little less aggressive. But when you put your foot into it, it snaps through the gears quickly, and the car moves just fine despite its size. Despite being a straight 6 instead of a V8, even here in standard output, because as I mentioned, you get more horsepower here than you did with that V8. Plus, being twin turbo means that you get this wall of torque, and you get it a lot earlier down in your rev range. It's quick. When you do start to hustle, it's a tall task to stop something that's big and heavy, but these Brembos are doing their job. Give those things a pay raise. Now, if you don't like the transmission's choices, or you just want a little more engagement on the back road, well, you have those paddle shifters that I mentioned before, and they give you a lot of leeway. You can wring it right out. You can even let it rev pretty much all the way down before it starts to auto downshift. But that freedom comes with some responsibilities, because it's also not going to put you back into drive mode, which I kind of like, except for the fact that I missed the note that popped up the first time I went into manual mode, which tells you how to get it back into drive mode. I was stuck in manual for the rest of the drive. Not the end of the world, but just keep an eye on that note. Secret is, hold down the right paddle. It's also decently quiet. I expected it to be a lot louder in here. I mean, Dodge isn't exactly known for quiet rides. We got big, beefy tires on this thing that are performance tires. It's not sensory deprivation tank in here, but it's a lot quieter than I expected, other than the sounds of the engine, which I'm okay with. But this one being a plus means it's got the Alpine audio system with active noise canceling, so that's certainly helping. That's also pumping in some of that engine noise, but again, I'm okay with it. Now, when you are just cruising, you've got some nice driver's assist stuff. You got the big old head-up display with the traffic sign recognition and all that. When you put it into sport mode, it even gives you a tack. You got blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert. I've got the 360 cam on this, parking sensors all over the place. You can turn off the lane keep, and that one will stay off, thankfully, because I do not like that. The auto start stop does not stay off, though. I mean, come on, this thing is not fuel efficient, no matter how many times the engine shuts off and turns back on. Adaptive cruise, the lane centering, which keeps you nice and centered on the highway. All good stuff, and it's all stayed out of the way when I haven't wanted it to be there, other than the start stop. But for the most part, everything else has been helpful when I need it, and not in the way when I don't want it to be. The one place I could use a little more assistance is out that back window back there. The first time I was driving this car, I was thinking, am I in the coupe? But I guess the Charger and Challenger have never really been known for rear visibility. The pricing for 2026 is a little bit of a roller coaster. This thing starts at 50 grand in the RT. My tester, being an RT Plus with the performance handling pack and a couple of options on it, is up at 65 grand, and you're really only going up from there. That's a lot of paper to shell out, but when you look at what you get and what it competes against, it's actually a pretty decent price. While the purists and the keyboard warriors will complain about the missing 2 cylinders until the sun burns out, what Dodge has built here is actually a pretty impressive product, as long as you can get past the hard plastics on the interior. It looks both beautiful and badass. It sounds great, has some pretty decent space on the inside, and when you put your foot into it, it just puts a big old smile on your face. Let me know how you feel about the 2026 Dodge Charger 6-pack down in the comments. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.